Today, I want to go over a couple of law school personal statement examples for Harvard. We know Harvard and many other Ivy League schools obviously have a very low success rate because a lot of applicants apply, and the success rate, just because of the sheer volume of applicants and the very low number of seats available every application cycle, very few people actually get it. It's the single digit percentage that get it. So not only that you have to be good, you have to be absolutely fantastic for them to want to consider you during the admissions process. And the key is that personal statement. So I'm going to go over a couple of personal statements for Harvard Law School. But first, in case you haven't watched any of my videos, my name is Behrouz Momeni. I'm the CEO and founder here at BMO. And maybe perhaps before we get started into the sample personal statement examples, I want to give you a very quick overview of what you got to do to make your law school personal statement stand out. So a little bit of a strategy, and then we'll put it into context with a couple of examples. You got to make sure you brainstorm a story that connects all the dots. Okay, it has to make sense. Two, you have to make sure your personal statement is personal, as the name implies, based on your unique, interesting, relevant experiences, not generic BS that's online. Three, you have to stick to a maximum of 1 to 3 main stories. I hate it when people start, listing too many things. It just becomes too disconnected, too many things to remember, hard to follow, and it lacks details. So stick to maximum 1 to 3 stories. 4, write a fantastic introduction that captivates, because introduction is the first thing they see, and if it's not good, game is over. So work the most amount of time on that introduction. And it's best to start with something like a question, a controversial statement, or a story, not something like, I always wanted to become a lawyer. Oh my God, that's going to go into the garbage right away. It's so generic. Next tip I have for your law school statement is the body should be used to solve every single cliffhanger you introduced in your introduction. And it must have, as I mentioned, specific examples, very descriptive, and very good stories that are relevant to your entire story, and of course, law school. And your concluding paragraph has to be also very good, because that's the last thing they see they're going to remember, such that they want to get to know you better. If it has an interview stage, whatever law school you're applying to, they want to meet you in person and interview you. If the next stage is essentially acceptance, the acceptance is just so that they could meet you to congratulate you because the story is so fantastic. Make sure you be careful about that. And lastly, a very major tip that a lot of people overlook: don't use any fancy words in your law school personal statements. Major red flag when you stuff thesaurus words that you found on a thesaurus for every single word. All of a sudden the personal statement doesn't make any sense. It's not your own actual language. It's completely disorganized and hard to read. Game is over. No matter how good your story is, if the personal statement language and the vocabulary doesn't read well, and it's not, essentially my tip usually is just go for a 5th grader. You're writing for a 5th grader. Anybody should be able to read your personal statement and be like, oh wow, it's so cool. Think about that. Don't use fancy words, just be simple, and that's it. So I gave you all the tips. Now let's look over a couple of law school personal statement examples from Harvard. These are some of our students, our past students who've been successful. Of course, I'm modifying some of the details to protect their identity. And what I want you to pay attention to is remember the tips that we just discussed and see how these applicants did in context. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over these 2 examples. So let me just quickly share my screen here for you. Harvard Law School personal statement example number 1. Let's read along. There is more than one way to lose your home. Tragedy is sudden and its traumatic effect linger long after the original incident. But when you feel a slow, steady disconnect between yourself and the place you grew up, it's another kind of loss. Now, I really like this intro because it's not your typical, hey, I want to be a lawyer, blah, 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 all that crap that just doesn't make any sense. It's emotional. And it looks like we're starting some sort of a story. Now I'm captivated. I want to read more. There you go. That was an example of something you should do. In recent years, I've noticed this loss more than ever before. As we grow up, there is bound to be some disillusionment. But my hometown is just the same. Only some of its uglier sides have been brought into the light. This pandemic has taken a huge toll, but I've never imagined it would stir up hatred and resentment in a place I always considered friendly and open-hearted. When I walked past the first anti-mask protest outside my local legislature, I was surprised by the vehement emotions from the crowd. I didn't understand the anger over very light restrictions from officials. After many months, as the protests continued, became more disruptive, I began to understand their frustration. Every week, I would tune in to hear from their province's premier what sort of restrictions could be expected or what the policy would be on handling the rising virus cases. Every week was disappointing as officials refused to take a stance or address the growing problem. When the issue became too much to handle, they cracked down too little too late. As a political science student interning as a campaign assistant for my local NLA, I witnessed some of these events up close. My own frustrations rose. It was strange to me to see so many of the people in my hometown become so filled with resentment. Even more aggravating was no one in my circle at work seemed to agree on how to handle the situation. Even disagreement on whether there was a situation still to be dealt with. The lack of clear policy and direction astounded me. The chaos and division were making my hometown unrecognizable to me. I realized with the lack of policy and proactive action, individual communities were banding together, further isolating themselves from others to find solutions to the collective mass on their own. Rather than come to a unified, strong solution, it has fractured us, broken us into multiple dysfunctional pieces where no one is happy with the result. It was this fracturing that sparked my decision to apply to law school. As I finished my undergraduate studies, I've realized the solution doesn't lie with making speeches. My goal of a career in politics has evolved. I want to be able to defend the policies we have put in place to help and protect us and fight against the policies we should update and abandon. We had and do have a legal measures in place to handle these situations. Why aren't we using them? I believe an education law school would allow me to recenter myself. As a future lawyer, I will be much better equipped to bring balance back to the people of my community and help them heal from this trauma. Now, this was good because it had all the elements we discussed. Good intro, good conclusion. It told a story. It got connected to why law school, and it demonstrated some of the actual experiences and skills this person might have via actions rather than words. This is a very good example of this person being able to show rather than telling. For example, they didn't say, I'm a great advocate, I'm a great communication, I have great communication skills, I'm a good leader, blah blah blah, all that stuff, right? They didn't say any of that stuff. In fact, that sounds a lot of really arrogant. So what I recommend to you, what you should do after this video, once you've seen the second personal statement example, go back to the tips I give, and then go back to each of these, take a pause and go paragraph by paragraph, see how everything I have said is implemented, and it doesn't have some of the usual common red flags or generic BS that a lot of poor personal statements have. So let's go to the next one. This is a second Harvard Law School personal statement example. Let's read this and see how this is. And you see, this is completely different from the other one. So, you could have had any type of experience and be able to create a very good personal statement if you understand the tips I gave you, and now you're seeing it in context. So here it is. We all have a childhood memory about our favorite treat. Maybe it's getting ice cream from the roving neighborhood ice cream truck, or stopping at a corner store for an ice cream popsicle. For me, the sweetest treat was running by my local mom and pop bakery after school. The place was practically an institution, cupcakes of every flavor with the fanciest icing and the biggest choice of sprinkles and toppings to go with. It had been in the neighborhood for 20 years. at least catering every child's birthday local celebration. I went there once a week with my friends. When I was in high school, again, before I continue, note how the intro sentence was so fantastic. I just got sucked into a story right immediately instead of, some generic statement. Let's continue. When I was in high school, I still visited once in a while. Around this time, a bakery in another city became overnight famous for refusing to bake a cake for a gay wedding. The internet backlash was incredible. Many establishments in support of the bakery began putting up signs in their windows advertising themselves as Christian-owned businesses that won't cater to the LGBT crowd. A few places in our town did the same. A year later, I moved away to attend university, and the issue dropped out of the news for a while. Over summers, when visiting home, I would stop in for a delicious cupcake and say hi to the owners to make small talk. On one such occasion, I was visiting with a family friend, stopped in to make an order for her daughter's birthday. The owners' faces dropped the moment they saw my friend, and they busied themselves with other customers. As I chatted with my friend about her daughter's birthday and how she wanted to get cupcakes from the local bakery, as was tradition, I couldn't help but notice the cold treatment from the owners. My friend confided to me that they'd refused her service last time because she's come into the shop with her wife in tow and asked for cupcakes for a birthday celebration. This time she wanted to try again and ask for for generic cupcakes for an event without her partner there. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, that my friend had to outright lie to be served, and served with subpar service at that, was appalling. After attempting to order cupcakes for the second time that day, my friend was actually told by the owners they would call 911 if she entered their shop again and refused her service. I have not been back to their bakery since. It's just a fantastic story. If you have, a sort of an experience that impactful, you have to say it. You see how this person, by the way, so far, it's just the story about going to a cupcake shop. It's simple as that. People make their personal statements so complicated. It's not. You must have had, some sort of a story that's been that spark. And if you don't, you shouldn't apply to law school. You're just doing it because somebody told you, because your mom told you, your parents told you, your peers told you, you saw it in the media, you just want to make a couple of bucks. Don't do that. You see, this is the reason this person got in. But this is important because now you see how this gets into a very important message, which is advocacy, and that's why you want to be a lawyer, right? You can't BS your way into saying I'm a great advocate for others. You can't BS your way. So you see how this is connected, and this person convinced me at least, and it makes sense why they were accepted to Harvard. Let's continue. This was very good. As the kind of kid who always liked standing up to bullies, I thought about being a lawyer before, but this exchange confirmed my decision for me. My friend should be able to enter a business and be served like any other customer. She was not disrupting their business in any way or infringing on their rights as business owners. She wanted some personalized birthday cupcakes for her child. These may seem like small incidences, but together they add up to a disturbing pattern. And unfortunately, there are many in the LGBT and other marginalized communities that don't get to have their voices heard on issues like this. I think the world needs more people who are willing to stand up, who stand with them and speak up about what's right. Again, you see someone who understands. I've had friends in similar situations, and the impact is just appalling. When you say a genuine story like that, there's a good chance the person reading the story will have a very positive impression of you. You'll trigger the right emotions. You see, this is, when I do these podcasts or videos, Because I do a lot of these, more or less, and I've seen all of these, I'm more or less immune to these emotions because I've seen them a lot. But even though I've read this story, it still triggers, and it teaches you something, which is if you want to get into any law school, you know, of anything you completely desire, think of, you know, whatever law school you want to think of. The best thing you could do is spend the right amount of time coming up with a story that is genuine, that is emotional, and also follows all the instructions I gave at the beginning about how to make that personal statement absolutely fantastic. And if you are able to add these emotions to it, you could almost guarantee that you could get it. So that was it for me. I thought these two were absolutely fantastic. If you enjoyed them as much as I enjoyed these two, let me know in the comment section. If you're watching this on, you know, one of the social media channels where you could comment, go ahead and comment. If you enjoyed this, share it with a friend who may be struggling with coming up with a proper personal statement for their law school. And of course, subscribe on whatever social media channel you're watching this so you don't miss any of the future episodes. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to talk to you soon again. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.